So, thank you so much for agreeing to come on an interview with me.
Yeah.
I've recently started my journey on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And as I'm looking through everybody that kind of gets suggested, I think your journey has stuck out to me a lot in terms of what you're doing in the community for mental health and to support young people. But also your own story behind mental health within your family and listening to your webinar where you were panelist.
Yes.
I was like, oh wow, that's a very inspiring story. So I would like to introduce you to my audience and see if we can come up with some beautiful, enlightening and insightful wisdom to share with the world.
Yes.
So would you introduce yourself and what you do, and then we're just gonna get into it from there.
So who am I? I'm Samantha Grant. Come from a Jamaican Windrush descendant, born here, single mum. Well, I'm now married, but I was a single mum with 5 kids, raised my children, from age 34, youngest 21. Got twin boys and 3 girls. And background of civil servant, working for the government, Department of Work and Pensions, and started as an admin assistant, worked my way up to management level. But then I had to give up my job because my son became mentally ill. And how that began is, imagine you're out with your friends on a Friday night, you're having dinner, it's a birthday celebration, you're drinking wine, and all of a sudden your phone rings and your neighbour says you need to get home because your son's hanging out of the 3rd floor window saying the devil's out to get him. Can you imagine? I was just like, I couldn't speak. I remember it like yesterday. I could not speak. And all my friends that was with me at the time, and family members, they were like, what? Something's wrong, I can tell. But I could not speak because I couldn't believe it. And all I said was, I've got to go. It was me and my daughter and my son, because my other daughter and my other son, they didn't come out. And I remember running out, getting in the car, getting home, and no, my daughter and my other twin got there before me. And then they rang me and said, Mum, he's barricaded us out of the house and said we can't come in because he'll have to kill us. And I was just like, what? I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I just left him like 2 hours ago. He came in from work. When he came in, I remember him saying to me, are you speaking to me in my head, Mum? But I was getting ready to go out. And I was like, what are you talking about? Stop being silly. No, I'm not. And he was like, okay, cool. But I took no notice because he's at uni, he's working, he's doing well.
Thriving.
He's thriving. And then eventually he opened the door. And when I got into the house, I said, son, what's wrong with you? And he was just like, oh, Mum, it's terrible. The devil and Jesus is here. They want to kill me. They want me to kill you. And can you imagine? I was just like, what's going on? My other kids were downstairs in the living room. They were crying. I was upstairs in the bedroom with him. But I remember looking over, and there was a little plastic bag and it had like green crystally thing in it. And I went over and I went to him, what is this? And he said to me, oh, Mum, it's skunk. I've been smoking skunk. And I said, since when? I couldn't believe it. And he goes, just sometime when I'm at uni with my friends. And I was like, oh my God. But I couldn't believe it because I didn't see it. So I wouldn't know, would I? And he was doing so well at uni working. So I didn't see the signs. Anyway, that went on and I went down to the kids and I was like, he's been smoking skunk and now he's hearing voices. And then as the days progressed, he progressed. So he wasn't going to work, so I had to tell the uni he's not coming to uni because he's not well and get a sick note for work. So I straight away became mother carer advocate for my son because I knew something was wrong with him, but I didn't know what. By the 4th day, his hallucinations, he would be doing all this and talking to himself and be in a corner, having a big conversation with the wall, saying he's talking to Jay-Z, Bill Gates. And I was just breaking inside because I didn't know what was going on. Reached out to the family, they said, oh my God, it's OBR, voodoo, witchcraft, whatever. We're going to get the pastor to come around and pray. The pastor came round and prayed. Obviously, nothing happened. He got worse. He got worse. By the 9th day, he was threatening to that, like, tonight you're gone. I've got to kill you. And then he punched my window, and I just made a decision safeguarding that it's not safe for me and the kids. But in the other area, I had family, the community saying, don't get him sectioned, because if you get him sectioned, he'll never come out the same. You know how it is for black boys, all this stuff. So imagine the intense pressure I was under, but I had to make that decision for safety. So we took him to A&E. We was in A&E for about, honestly, 18 hours. What they do is they put you in a room, security outside, because he can't leave.
So when you took him to A&E, did he just willingly go with you? Or
Yeah, he came. Me, his twin, and his big sister. We said, we're going to take you to hospital to help you because it's not fair on you. He came willingly.
Okay.
But once he was in the room and he saw the security there, he didn't like it. So, he was swearing at us and being verbally aggressive and things like that. Then I said to him, when they come, say that you feel mentally unwell and ask them if they can take you to hospital to get help. Because what I did know, I was told that if he goes involuntary, he'd be able to go in and out of the hospital because he went involuntary, and he has an insight into his mental illness. He knows he's mentally unwell. When they came, you get a social worker, a psychiatrist and a doctor. They assess you, and they sectioned my son under the Mental Health Act 28-day section. I cannot tell you how that made me feel. Even thinking about it now, I choke, because it was a big decision for me. It was very hard for me and my family. And we didn't want to leave him in the hospital, but we had to. And now remember, for 9 days, we haven't been sleeping properly. All my kids were at home then, so I had 5 kids living at home. This was like 11 years ago. And
how old was your son then?
He was 20.
Okay.
Yeah. And once I got home, me and my daughter, we were on the floor crying, holding our stomachs. It was heart-wrenching to know that he'd been sectioned. We didn't know what was going on. That was all of our first night of peaceful sleep. We were able to sleep because he wasn't there. And I remember in the morning I got up and I just said, I'm not going to work, because I just couldn't go in.
Of course, yeah.
So I'd been off for 9 days. I took sick because they said my son's an adult, that they couldn't give me leave. So I just went sick because I was so stressed that my hair started to fall out, everything in those 9 days.
Where were you working?
For Department of Work and Pensions, but they don't care. He's an adult, isn't he? He's not a child. But that was my baby, so I didn't care.
Yeah.
I thought, I don't care if you don't want to pay me. So I went sick.
Yeah.
And obviously I went to the doctor and explained what happened and got sleeping tablets. And I went on a rampage on Google. I was like researching everything, hearing voices, everything, because obviously I'm come from a Jamaican community. We don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about madness, like they call it madness, but it's not madness, it's mental illness. They just say that one's mad, keep away from him. No, they're mentally ill, they're hearing voices. It's horrible to watch, to see your child hallucinate. Anyway, once I did my research, I found out that it's actually a drug-induced psychosis.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, why me? And why didn't I see the signs? And then I was talking to my kids, and my daughter said, you know what? The signs were there. Because I remember him one day coming in and saying to me that, are you speaking to me in my head and that? And I was like, bro, get out of my room, stop being stupid. Like, we didn't take, you just don't take notice, do you? Because he's at uni, he's working, he looks fine, he looks like everything's great. But one thing I remember, that when he was unwell and I looked into his eyes, you see that glaze. It's like you're looking into the deep blue ocean. They're not there, you know. And I always recognized that look. And I did the research and I thought, oh my God. Anyway, they have ward rounds where you go and you see the consultant. So I went to his first ward round, sat down with the consultant, and my son gave permission for me to come in. Because another thing is that if they say they don't want you in there, they won't let you in as a parent because he's an adult. But I thought, I don't care if he's an adult, he's unwell, I need to be there to advocate for him. And he would say, no, I'm good, there's nothing wrong with me, all this stuff. So while I was in the meeting, you know, the consultants was saying that, well, what you can do is obviously suffer the drug-induced psychosis, and, you know, if you need letter for his benefits or anything like that. I said, excuse me, my son's not on benefits. My son works and he's actually at uni. Don't stigmatise my son as a young black boy that doesn't do anything. How dare you? That got my back up. I didn't like that. And then it just went from there. He was in the hospital for about 8-9 days and he escaped.
He escaped?
He escapes from the facility.
How?
So I was, because he's smart. He see that they use a buzzer at reception, made one of the other patients hold the buzzer for him and walked out the door. He's smart.
It's not like top security there.
No, it's not top security.
It's not like
exactly.
escaping from prison or anything. It's a hospital still.
And so I was in the house and the buzzer went and it was him. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he was like, I came home, I was missing you, but you could see that he wasn't 100% well. And by the way he was dressed, you could see that he wasn't 100% well. I said, how did you get here? He goes, I got on a bus, I just said I ain't got an Oyster. Obviously the bus man looked at him and thought, yeah, you're not well, I'm not even bothering. He just left him and he came home. So I took him back to the hospital.
And the whole time, he's not going against you because he seems like he was still quite...
No, he wasn't.
He's still cooperating with you.
Yeah, he wasn't, because as much as the voices were turning him against me, that part of him would come back where he loved his mum. Yeah, because you would hear him say, I don't want to kill her, she's a good mum. He would be arguing with the voices. Very dangerous.
I had a friend in Austria when I grew up, and he also had a skunk-induced, drug-induced psychosis, and he tried to kill his mum as well.
Yeah, you see? It does happen.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everyone that goes through it is violent, but it does happen. It's very dangerous because they're listening to voices. So it's hard. And then, so I took him back, but what I did, I made him stay outside of his sister. And I went in and I said, oh, I'm here to see they knew me because every visiting time, me or the kids were there. Like, my son had his family support 100%. Not everyone has that. Not everyone has that. I was even advocating for other people in there, other young black boys that were in there and had no family, telling the staff, don't talk to them like that, it's rude. You're supposed to be providing a level of care. Because what I saw, I wasn't happy with. So that made me even more on the facility, fighting for my son and letting them know, don't even bother because he's got a family that loves him and we're not going to give up. So when I took him back, they were like, oh yeah, we're going to get him. But they didn't even know he weren't there. Can you believe that? They didn't even know he was missing. Then afterwards, the nurse that I spoke to and said, get my son, she didn't come back. I saw the ward manager come and I thought, now they've realised he's not here. So when the ward manager came, the ward manager said, oh, can we bring you in a room because we have... I said, yeah, my son's not here. I've got him. I've brought him back. I said, let me tell you something. I want to see the consultant and I want my son released into my care with his medication. I will advocate and care for him because obviously you lot can't provide the level of care that he needs. And they released him into my care the next day, and that is how my journey started. I started researching healthy eating, exercise, put him in the gym, giving him like fish and lots of green vegetables and making all like the old school juices that we used to make in Jamaica, what they call like smoothies and things like that, where you blend up like apples, you know, when you blend fruits and vegetables. I started to do all that. I just went on a mad healthy regime for him and just got him into gym and just supported him, made him take the medication because he was hearing voices. I'm not a lover of medication, but because he was hearing voices, he had to take medication to sort out the chemical imbalance in his brain. So that's what psychosis is a chemical imbalance in your brain.
Okay, so when you hear voices, it's not about schizophrenia necessarily.
They call it can be schizophrenia, but my son was diagnosed with schizoaffective bipolar. So he has high and lows, but with schizoaffective disorder. So that's the voices part of it. So schizophrenia, you hear voices, you can hallucinate. It's different for everybody. So he had medication. Once the voices were gone, we sat down, had a family meeting. Me and my kids were so close. And we were just saying, listen, you've got to leave the skunk alone. It made you really ill. And he was like, I know, it was horrible. I was petrified what I was going through. I was so scared because I was fighting with the devil and, you know, he wanted me to kill you. And I felt it was so hard to listen to. But once he was better, went back to uni, graduated, went back to work, I thought, look what me and my kids have been through with no support. It was heartbreaking. I thought, imagine all them other families that are out there and got no help. There needs to be a service for black people that support black families, that work with the individual that's unwell and the family at the same time, because it's traumatic for the individual, but it's also traumatic for the families. And that's how I thought of Find a Balance. I went into work one day and I said to my friend, I'm leaving work and I'm starting my own company and I'm calling it Find a Balance. And she was like, what? What do you mean? You've never run a business? I went, I don't care, it's my calling. This has happened to my son because I'm a very spiritual person. I believe in energy and everything. And I said, this has happened to my son for me to go on this journey and I'm doing it. She goes, you've got no money. I said, the higher power will provide, God will provide. And I handed in my notice and I launched Find a Balance.
And one thing I've also noticed about this story is like that the importance of having a family that stands behind you.
No, it's so important. It's imperative.
And that's probably the main reason, not the only reason that your son made it out, because you were like, right, even though you are what I can hear a Christian, and you have a family of Christians that you know, mean well, but it could have easily gone as well that you just go and get him to have an exorcism and then it doesn't work and you're just like, all right, then that's it. But it's for you to do the research to actually stand up for your son. And let's talk a little bit about that aspect of like mental health within the black community and how it's often being brushed over to madness or the devil or religious things when, you know, there's more help, more medical help that is needed as well.
It's hard because it's our culture, it's our upbringing. You don't talk about your business outside of the home. It's that hush hush, isn't it? Because your family don't want to be ashamed or looked down at. So imagine you grow up in that culture. Because, for example, I've had a lot of deaths since COVID. But before, when I lost my brother 19 years ago, June just gone was 19 years since I lost my brother in a car crash.
Sorry to hear that.
And when I tell you, I was really close with him. There was 8 of us. And my life came to a stop. I couldn't function. And I was working for Department of Work and Pensions then. And I was off work for 6 months. I couldn't even go to work. I was depressed. And I remember saying to my mum that, you know, I can't deal with it. And my mum said, look, I've lost a son and, you know, heartbroken I am, he's my son, but you have to get on with it. And you've got a good job, your kids are doing good. Life goes on, you've got to carry on. Although my mum was broken, that was the way we dealt with things. We didn't speak about bereavement therapy, and bereavement therapy exists. How many black communities do you hear talk about, you know, when you experience death, there's bereavement therapy. They don't.
That part, yeah.
Yeah, they don't.
No.
Don't talk about go and seek help because you've lost someone you love.
No,
they don't talk about that specialist therapy that's there. They just leave you. Because that's how they were brought up. Their parents, our great-grandparents, it's the culture, whether you're West Indian, African, it doesn't matter. Similarities is how we are. So in the black community, when it comes to mental illness and things like that, like you said, they say madness or voodoo or witchcraft. So that was really hard because you're trying to show that my son's unwell, but he's not mad and crazy. He's unwell. Because if I broke my arm, the first thing you do when you see me say, oh, what happened to your arm? But when it's mental illness, people are like, oh no, because of the stigma around it, and they don't want to be a part of it. And then they think you got witchcraft and so they don't want to be around your family because they don't want it to come on them. And we're in 2024 and it's still like that. It's hard. The services that are out there, one of the things I found was that it's all about medication. Medicate them, get them better, throw them back out in the community, put them into care under the community. That doesn't work. My son needed therapy. Going back, what we didn't know is that we knew he broke up with his girlfriend, but we didn't understand how it affected him. That was his first proper girlfriend. He had to break up with her because she was using drugs, like cocaine and things like that. My kids, they haven't been brought up in that environment or things like that. And my son tried to support her, but things happened in the relationship where he just said he can't do it no more and he broke up with her. But then he went into depression and we didn't know, and neither did his twin. So when he was going uni, he was talking to friends and obviously smoking a skunk. I didn't know, and that's how the drug-induced psychosis came about. But the thing is that he was so close with his twin, but he felt too ashamed to say that he's hurting out of the breaking up with his girlfriend. It's also a masculinity thing. Masculinity.
Yes.
Masculinity. Yes. We teach our men not to cry, not to show their feelings. I'm saying to everybody out there, don't do that. I taught my kids to cry and show your emotion. It doesn't mean you're a weak man. You've got feelings, blood runs through your veins. You've got a heart. A man should be able to cry and show his emotional side. Do you know what I mean?
And that's what you said as well. And this is the same. Actually, you can compare that almost to like other illnesses like cancer. It's about early intervention.
Yes.
And if you don't, with mental health, if you don't express yourself, there's no. So really and truly, and there's so much this big movement on social media of these men that believe in Andrew Tate and saying men are not supposed to show emotions.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Yes,
you are. Because what will happen is naturally, it will break you down. Okay?
Yeah.
Because you're acting macho in front of people, but when you're home alone, trust me, you're feeling it. That trauma you've experienced and the way you're feeling it because you're on your own. But because you're not embracing how you're feeling and letting yourself cry and let go of that emotion and embrace the pain that you're feeling, it stays in you till it can't no more and then it explodes. Mm-hmm. That's what happened with my son. He was using a skunk as a coping mechanism, but obviously it couldn't work for him. So therefore it got chemical imbalance in his brain. He suffered a drug-induced psychosis. And it's even talking about it, I'm telling you, it's been 12 years since it first happened, and I can talk about it, but when I first started talking about it, you could hear the pain in me because it was so painful. They put him for therapy because I said he needs talking therapy. He waited 7 months. When he went for therapy, he went, Mum, I'm not being funny, but it's a middle-class white woman with a pen and paper and she's asking me stupid questions like I'm an idiot. I'm not going back. And I said, oh, please go, because you need to be able to express yourself and talk about things that you won't talk about with your family. Because not everything you want your family to know. Some things you just want to keep it personal. You don't even want to tell your bestest friend. because it's so personal to you. You just want to be able to offload it and know it doesn't go anywhere and it stays there. And then you get, support how to deal with those feelings and emotions that you're going through. And when the one session he went to, was like, I'm not doing it. Why can't I have a black therapist? It's the NHS. Yes, they do have black therapists, but not as much. The higher up you go, the wider it goes, and that's the truth. And I'm not knocking the NHS, because to me, I think we've got, one of the best free healthcare in the world. Because when you go Jamaica, America, and all them places, I know that the NHS has changed and it's got waiting lists, and it's not how it used to be, but you can still get free healthcare, and we've got to be appreciative of that. They call me Auntie Sam. It's really funny. My young people call me Auntie Sam. They're like, you're like an auntie, you're on a level, you get it. Because I was a young mum. At the age of 17, I had a kid. So I had to grow up. But I know what it's like to be young. I know what it's like growing up in black families. You can't say this, you can't do... I know, because I am that. Do you know what I mean? I come from that. And I always say, if you don't come from our culture, you're not going to get it. It's not just about... I respect doctors, psychiatrists and everything, because you've got your qualification. If you're not black, you don't understand our journey. It's different for us. Do you know what I mean? It is different for us. What you will experience as a white person, I'm not experiencing. And that's facts. We can see that. Do you know what I mean? Because even when I was an employee working, I used to see that. I used to fight for my positions and, to get that respect. That's why I joined the union and studied employment law and got myself up to scratch. So then I couldn't be abused. Do you know what I mean? Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. So it is different for black people.
Yeah.
It is, because it's hard because of your culture, where you come from, and you feel ashamed to reach out and go and tell the doctor this has happened or that's happened. But we need to. Early intervention, I have to say my grave concern for people that don't believe in early intervention. As soon as you see a sign, reach out for that help, because it will prevent more severe mental health issues. Do you know what I mean? Later on down the line. Because if I saw from the beginning what my son was going through, I would have sought help for him from then. But I didn't. So we ended up getting sectioned and us going through all of this. Very traumatic. And the thing is that, I've done work at Harrowing Sixth Form College with the Prue children, and I did a workshop with them. And when I got there, they goes, they'd be on their phone and they don't really engage. And I'm telling you, these youths, when I walked in and said to them, listen, if you want to be in a workshop, phone goes off. You don't want to turn off your phone, leave. Because I've got that approach. Remember, I've raised 5 kids on my own.
Yeah.
I've got that approach. So I said, here's your chance, you just leave. And then, some of them were like kissing their teeth and having attitude, but I ignored that. But when I did the workshop, when I tell you them kids engaged with me, they got it. Do you know why? Because they could see that I was real. That yes, I'm a professional, but I have a background and real life story, that what I was like as a young person, what I went through and all that type of stuff. They engaged with me. Some of them signed up for me to work with them. Some of them said, listen, my cousin's struggling and I know that you can help. Won't go to the doctor or not, because there's lack of trust. There's that big lack of trust, and you can't blame us. Do you know what I mean? But when you're unwell, you need to reach out to get that support, because the support is there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just about finding the right support, because it's prevention. And it's just so important. If I knew, like I said, if I knew from the beginning, I would have got my son the right support.
And what would you say in terms of find the balance? What would you say are the biggest challenges that kind of these young people go through? Going a little bit into the statistics of the mental health within the black community when it comes to young people.
Oh my God, young people, sometimes I feel sorry for them nowadays, because social media's hit the roof. It's all about image. It's all about portraying this image that you're this and you're that, and they've got to live up to that. Anxiety in the black communities actually hit the roof. When you think about it, black adults, say from the age of, say, 16 up to adulthood, they are at like, their health treatment rate is at like 6%. 6% of black young people, adults in the UK seek help, whereas white, there's 13%. Now look at that, that's just over double that black people seek help with. So it shows you the big difference in how it, you know, the percentage of us that get help for treatment, which isn't good. 6% of us go for treatment.
Yeah, and I guess it's
I mean, come on, that is very low. White British is 13%.
But it's also like, that's like we said, is a cultural thing, of course.
Cultural.
But then it's also then when you do, there's no trust for us to put our life into the government's hands.
Exactly. The lack of trust.
Yes.
The stigma around mental health. The lack of trust. The thing of when you go for treatment, they're just going to drug you up. You're not going to be the same. Remember, they said that to me about my son. You know, but I had to because of the situation. It isn't wrong because it's just medicate. No, yes, I told you I'm not a lover of them medication, but in extreme cases you need medication to balance back your brain. Okay, but what about the healthy eating? What about exercise? What about the holistic approach? It's an all-rounder. Yes. It's not a one glove fits all approach. You can't deal with a human being like that because we're each and every one of us are completely different. Do you know what I mean?
And that's why, like, the more and more I talk to you, that's why your organization makes so much sense.
Yes.
For the black community.
Yeah, it
because
does.
You have that all-rounder approach. You have the cultural approach of like understanding, having been on the journey yourself, working with the young people. They feel they can identify themselves with you and connect. And then you have all these workshops and the events. Tell me a little bit more about the workshops that you run and how they impact the young children.
Yeah, so I do workshop in like colleges. Like I said, I did sixth form college and in October Mental Health Week, I am going to be doing mental health workshops for the young people from the age of 16 and up who's at City and Islington College. My workshop is about skunk cannabis, what it does to you, how it affects you. Because we've got a culture of, yeah man, weed's good, whatever. No, not what, you know, it's not good because what they spray on it and the way it's artificial grown, it's not good for you, you know. But it's the culture we've grown up, weed's good and all this type of stuff. So I do that, it's cool. Anxiety, massive with young people. Especially some of them, I'm finding in the past 2 years, social anxiety has become big. Young people aged 12 and over, right? Big. And they're not getting the support at home because their parents don't understand it. Because look, life happens. And I'm not going to sit here and say I've had a perfect upbringing or a perfect life because I haven't. But I've had to make the most of what I've had to do because I was a mum young. So I had to grow up, step up to the plate. Made lots of mistakes in life, been through traumatic experience. I didn't even know trauma existed until what happened to my son. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not spoken about. You know, it's just not spoken. There's a lot of hush and shush in families. And when I say it, people get annoyed, but it's the truth.
And I think also like what's happening right now, so many of us going through like these mental health challenges of our generation is because it was hush.
Exactly.
And now there's this movement, and that's just where the world is right now, where things are being expressed.
Yes.
And we are at the end of the, like, we have, how you call it, at the brunt of it.
Yes.
And it's coming all out now.
Yes.
And what we have to realize as people that are going through this mental health challenges now of our generation, some of these things go through generations. It's not just our burden to carry.
Listen,
it's
our parents, their parents, My great, it's gone through the family,
and now you are the one.
Now I'm the brunt of it. So you have to be like, hold on a minute. I have to break this. You know, when they say like generational curse and things like that. You have to break it for your children. Otherwise, it will continue through the families, and it's really dangerous. I mean, I've had people that say to me, "I don't know how you bother with junkies," and I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" I know what they mean, but I want them to explain to me why they said that. Well, do you know what I mean? They're just addicts. They just smoke crack, doing this, and I say that. I don't look at it like that. For one, show some respect, it's addiction. And you don't know what that person's been through in life, the trauma they've experienced, the fact that is their coping mechanism. I have more passion and love for people like that. Because imagine what they're going through, why they have to be like this. When you speak, do you know, through my work, I have so much compassion. I've always been a loving, caring person and wanting to help, right? Oldest child of 8. So you know you grew up first anyway, you're looking after your younger sibling. But now, doing what I do, the compassion I have for humanity on a whole, but for people that do struggle with addiction and are black men, because the way they've been brought up and they can't express themselves, I understand and get it at its core so much now. And I'm like, let's have a bit more compassion for our men. Have it for ourselves, yes. Let's have a bit more compassion for black men, because the way they've been brought up has been so harsh for some of them. Do you know what I mean? No love. And like, I cuddled my kids. Growing up, I didn't get that. It was a culture of your mum and dad worked hard to feed you, give you a nice home, you wear nice clothes, you live nice, they love you. No, you've got to hug and kiss your kids, let them know that I love you. You've got to nurture your children from young. You've got to be open with your children, not let them have secrets. Because then things happen and you don't even know, because it's hush culture.
And you
know what I mean?
I feel like also as a community, but generally like just public consciousness is going. No, actually, mainly as a community, we're going through a transition from survival mode to thriving mode.
Yes.
And because we're in the middle of that, I think this is where some people, the hush people, that survival mode behavior. But when you want to start thriving, you have to let go of some of that weight. You're not going to be able to elevate.
You have to let go. You've got to work through it. It's layers. You've got to work through all the trauma, all the hurt, all the pain. It can take years. Yeah. There's no quick fix.
But be honest.
And keep going. Keep going. You might have a day where you have a flashback of that traumatic experience, but now you can be gentle to yourself and say, it wasn't my fault. That happened. It wasn't my fault. I was a young person or a kid or whatever, even if it happened to you as an adult. Love yourself. Don't beat yourself up about it. Because things happen in life and we have no control. That's facts. Trauma happens, but it's how we address and deal with it and work through it. And parents need to be more nurturing and loving to their children, especially nowadays, how it is out there. It's hard for a young person now. You know, I've lost 2 friends, proper friends, to suicide. And I know of at least 10 other people that have taken their own life, and they're all black and mixed parentage. You know? It's because they couldn't go no more. You know? And you can't judge these people because you haven't walked in their shoes. You don't know what they were going through. When you have mental distress, it is hard. And you feel flashbacks, can't sleep, anxiety, you know what I mean? You feel low, you don't want to leave the house, you don't want to talk. Going through them things is hard. And then you can't even open your mouth to your family. No. As soon as you say mental health, they just look at you like you it's like it's a foreign language. So we need to educate and empower our family, your networks, people around you. Have more compassion, nurture, you know, embrace humanity. Just have some love and care. Do you notice that there ain't a lot of love and care out there? No. It's a dog eat dog world.
And you really feel like
worse
you're
now.
on your own these days.
Oh, yes.
You really can't
Oh,
feel like
yes.
you can't talk to anybody about
Yeah.
your problems.
Yeah.
You feel like this is why I think your organization is so important to
Yeah.
have in the community. It needs to be bigger. There needs to be
It
more.
needs to be bigger.
You know?
I've got so much like vision, what I've visioned for the future, and my mission is to educate and empower people around mental illness and taking care of your mental well-being, and just supporting each other, because it's so important. But my vision is to expand what I do to Birmingham, Manchester, and all the other across the UK. But those things take money, doesn't it? But that is my vision. I'm working towards it, and with the grace of God, I will get there. But I've done some incredible work, because I would have never thought I'd get a contract with like Mopac or the NHS. Because remember, I just started out of my son getting ill.
Yeah.
So when I got that...
But you knew it was your calling.
I knew it was my calling. Yeah.
Yes.
I knew it was. As painful and traumatic as it was for a reason. And I've got that motto that when something negative happens, don't worry. I know at the time it's distressing and hard, something positive is going to come out of it. Do you know what I mean? Keep going, persevere. And look at me now. When I got the contract with Mopac, I was working with young girls who at risk of crime and, and gang violence, etc. in the borough. And I worked with a small amount of girls, about 12, just workshops on a weekly basis. We became a little family. But one of the things I found with the young girls, they didn't know about, they didn't understand they were being verbally abused. Domestic violence, physically, to them it was a norm. For their boyfriend to grab them up and tell them, don't wear this and don't do that. No, I said, no, that's like coercive control. It's illegal. They're not allowed to do that to you. If you feel you want to dress, sexy in a mini skirt or whatever, that's up to you. You're allowed to. It's not for your partner to be grabbing you and giving you a slap and say, take that off, and telling you where you can go. And I couldn't believe, and I'm talking about, I was working with girls that are like 16 and over.
Yeah.
And I was just so shocked. So the workshops was about educating, empowering them and building back their self-esteem to be strong. And what I educated them about wasn't just about mental illnesses and mental well-being. It was about loving and embracing yourself and not relying on that partner. And this came about because their upbringing, they didn't get that love and support in the family unit at home.
Yeah.
That nurturing and love that I was talking about that you need when you're young. They weren't getting that. That's imperative to a child's life.
It's a foundation.
It's a foundation.
Yeah, and the foundation is already what you expect to grow.
So because they didn't get that in the home, they get that on the street. And
Or
then they latch
it.
onto that. They latch onto it and look for it on the streets.
Yeah, family. You want a family dynamic. You gotta look for it somewhere.
It was really dangerous.
What do you feel like is the most common things that young people are going through at home?
They're not getting the love they deserve. A lot of, I don't want parents to take me the wrong way. What I mean is that, yes, you're loving your child by feeding them, clothing them, letting them go to school, but you're not taking that. You know what love is? Love is taking the time out to make sure you see what's going on in their phone. That's part of love, I love you, so I want to know what's going on in your life on a deeper level. That's love. Making sure that your child understands who they are and how much they mean to you. Sit down and have those conversations. Do you know what I mean? And listen, I was a young parent. It was hard for me growing up my kids on my own. It was very, very hard. And it was depression. And I grew up with my kids with getting beatings. You know how it is, black culture. You don't do well, you get beaten, and read your book and you don't need nothing. All that stuff. So when I first had my kids, I used to smack them as well because I just thought that was the way. But as I got older, I realised, no, that's not the way. Because you're satisfying yourself by doing that. You're not satisfying your child. that's hurting them. There's other ways. I found punishment impacted so much more on my kids
Because one day the kids
than
are like,
slapping
okay,
them.
slap me then.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do then?
But you see the punishment, not going out and things like that, massive impact. You see change in their behaviour.
Action and
Just take a
consequence.
different approach, because what happens when they're young affects them when they're older. You know, and I had to rewire my relationship with my children and admit all my flaws, the mistakes I made. You know how painful and hard that was for me to be brutally honest and admit that this was wrong, what I did to you, and all that. Do you know how painful and hard that is? It was, but you know what? It built my relationship with my kids solid. Do you understand? Because my kids knew from there that Mum made mistake, but she rectified, and Mummy loves us. Because for her to do that, it was hard. It was.
How did you come to that idea that you have to apologise for? I mean, what was the thought process behind it? And
do you know what it was? It was because I came to a point in my life when my son, that's what I'm saying, when my son got ill, everything changed. On a deeper level, it had domino effect in the whole family. I started to look at life differently because of how much lack of support I had from family and friends that should have been there to support me. And I just thought at my most vulnerable time, and I'm not someone that goes for help, I'm a go-getter, I do everything, I'm always a helper.
yeah.
So in my vulnerable situation, I didn't get the help I needed. And I don't know, I can just say that God was just showing me things. You need to do this, you need to do that. You know, you need to get things right. Because me and the kids were very close, but they still had their issues from their past that we've never spoken about. And God was showing me, you need to address that. Your kids love you to death. They're not going nowhere. And I did. And it was terrifying. And it was painful. Like I said, a lot of tears. And my kids would say to me, oh, Mum, it was all right, you know, this, that. And I go, no. Don't try and cover it like, Mumsy, it's okay, it was wrong and it shouldn't have happened. Do you know what I mean? And I had to do that. But do you know what? It nurtured my kids, and my kids were able to flourish. Do you know what I mean? So as parents, you've got to look into yourself. And I know that it's hard because I've been through it, but you do need to do that, because later on in life, your child's going to have issues, I'm telling you. It's natural, it's a knock-on effect. The trauma hasn't been addressed. As you get older, it comes out. They use coping mechanisms, whether that's a way of, they use violence, drugs, drink, whatever, it comes out.
It's true.
Yeah, because I've worked with a young boy, 12 years old, no respect for his mum, keep hitting his mum. The mum didn't know what to do, mixed race boy. A friend said he needs some lessons from Auntie Sam and things like that. And when I went, and she was just like, I don't know what's wrong with him. And, you know, all he does is, he when I tell him off, he's all hitting me, and he's broke my nose before and all this stuff. And I was just thinking, what? Not on my watch.
Violence from children.
Yeah, but
parents.
what it was, his dad used to batter his mum. That was traumatic for him, you know. Halfway through working with him, because he would be talking to me about stuff, and I can see him want to cry, and he'd be holding it in, and I'd be like, just cry, let it out, it's good for you. And he'd say to me, I'm not a pussy. And I'll be like, the fact that you can cry and embrace your emotions shows that you're not a pussy. All right, darling? It shows that you're in tune with yourself. Don't think like that, because it's going to affect you later on in life. But anyway, working with him, at the core of it, he goes that he's angry that his mum stayed with his dad all that time, and he used to beat his mum, and then he used to beat him. And that was the core of that lack of respect and the feeling of resentment and hate towards his mum. But then he loved his mum, do you know what I mean? So he was in turmoil with himself mentally, that I do love my mum, but why did she do, why? And he'd lash out.
And at the end of the day, I think one thing that we don't realize as well is that we learn love and what it means to be in a relationship.
Yes.
From our parents, from
Yes.
our mom, from our dad.
Yes.
From our family dynamic. Because
Yes.
even if it's not your biological dad, but
Yes.
it's still man and woman, female
Yes.
and male energy in the house.
Yes.
And that's what we carry.
Yes.
That's what we look at.
Yes.
And that's what we embody when we grow up.
Yeah.
So I guess seeing his dad hit his mom and then
Yeah.
maybe 2 days later
Yeah.
they love each other again.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
must
yeah.
think, oh,
Yeah.
this is how my mom
Yes.
wants to be. This is
Yeah.
this is what love is. This
Yes.
is how you do. You hit,
Yes.
you abuse, and
Yeah.
then 2 days later everything is
Yeah.
fine, and
Yeah.
that's just okay. And because I see my mom living with that and tolerating it, that must be the way
Yeah,
she
that's-
wants
that's
to be
what
loved.
happens.
It sounds crazy, but
No, but that
that's
is
what
how it is. You're the teachers, remember?
Programming.
You're your kids' first teachers.
Yeah.
So what they see within the home, what they hear within the home is what they learn. The first 5 years of a child's life, their brain is a sponge. They absorb everything.
And it's just
and
becomes
it's
the norm.
and you know what? A child. I remember when I first launched my company in November 2016. I was on London Tonight, and they were asking me about having the therapy in schools, and they were saying, how young do you think? And I said, from 5 years old, you need therapeutic therapy in schools for those young people, because their first 5 years of their life, if they've been through trauma, they need that support from early as 5, early intervention to prevent them to growing up and having all this trouble. And you know, it's too much for young people, it's too much for adults, it's too much for humanity. We have to address trauma on a deeper level. We do.
Globally, like
globally,
public consciousness.
Yes.
And also
I'm not saying it's easy and you just do this and that and it's all right, because that's rubbish. It's not. But it makes a difference.
One more thing before we end. I have my debated conversation game, which is like 160 questions, and it's all concerning with the Black community. Mm-hmm. It has a little bit of relationships things as well, but there's just 2 questions that I feel like really relates to what we've spoken about, and I just want to go through 2 of the questions, and then we can Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, not really. Just get the help they need, early intervention, recognise the signs, educate yourself on the different illnesses, anxiety, depression, severe depression. Remember, it's a knock-on effect. You can start with anxiety, which can lead to severe anxiety, which can lead to depression, severe depression, then psychosis. You don't just get psychosis from taking drugs, you can get it from traumatic experiences. And I want, the viewers who are watching and listening, I want you to know that educate yourself, because knowledge is power, and your health is wealth.
Yes. Okay, so I think there are 2 questions in there that I want to ask based on the conversation we had. And one is, do you believe that the mental health of men is not taken as serious as the mental health of women?
1,000%. 1,000. That's why I said we've got to have compassion for men. It's not taken seriously. They're at the more severe end. That's why in the hospital there's so many young black boys with psychosis. Yes, they're smoking skunk, but their mental health before that, they've experienced something, obviously, why they're smoking. Remember, you get ill and you need coping. How do I cope with that? So these things are coping mechanisms, smoking, skunk or drugs or drinking, or whether you just seclude yourself from everybody. It's a way that you cope with the illness. It's not taken seriously enough. And that is one of the things I want to work and campaigning for moving forward. I want to do that, to be more of a mental health specialist speaking out for our black men in the community. So what I want to do is get some research done and get up-to-date figures of the amount of black men that have committed suicide, that are going through the mental health hospitals and all that stuff, and put it together and see how we can address and change it and do a campaign to support black men. I know mental illness and health, it does affect everybody at some time in their life, but black men's just not taken seriously.
Okay, so this one says, what can we do collectively in the community to improve or better our mental health as a people?
The first thing we need to do is address the stigma around mental illness and mental health. Too much of a stigma is around it. We need to break down the stigma around it. That's another thing that I'm working on, breaking the stigma around mental illness and mental health. And we need to talk more. We need to talk more about how we are feeling and what is going on. Because if we don't talk about it, you can't, sort it out. You can't get it out. Stop holding things in and hiding it. So collectively as a community, let's address mental health, let's talk about generational curse. Let's talk about trauma as a collective, and that we want to fight it and get it out of ourselves as adults, out of our children. Do you know what I mean? As a collective, come together. Let's make a massive change. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would just be like the cream of the crop for me. Have it with people across the world even all campaigning at the same time, talking about mental illness and mental health. Because when I go back home to Jamaica and see the people, I'm like, oh my God, like this man is somewhere walking the street naked and everybody like is a madman leaving and he's dirty, he stink. And I say, why ain't he in hospital? I did a yoga retreat out there before in Jamaica like 2 years ago, but I want to go to Africa and in the West Indies and start campaigns there to let's treat our people who are mentally unwell better and educate them as well, because they do have that big stigma of madness and obeah and all this stuff, So we've just got to educate and empower each other, because come on man, it's killing us. It's actually killing us. It's at a point now where it's so serious. I mean, your health is always serious, but mental health, it's got so bad now, especially with our young people. We have to address and talk about it as a collective.